Good evening, good evening, good evening. Today is Thursday and it is November 6th and it's 5:30. I'm still getting used to our new time. We switched from noon to 5:30. I'm Dr. Tanji and it's time for another episode of Let's Talk Power Live where we talk about power in education in real and tangible and operational ways. Today's Thursday, and I like to start by sharing something I'm thankful for and asking you to take a moment and pause and be very intentional about naming what you're thankful for. So I'm thankful because this past Tuesday was election day in Virginia, and I got the chance and the opportunity to serve as an election officer. I had been wanting to do that for many, many years and never knew how. And this year I got the opportunity to do so. So I am thankful for that. And I will say, I am thankful for the results of that election and those of many other elections across the country. What are you thankful for? Take a moment, think about it. If you're live with me today, thank you so much for being here. Share your live in the chat. Excuse me. Share your live. Let me know specifically what you are thankful for. If you are catching this on the replay, leave me a comment. Let me know, and I will respond to your comment. Thank you so much. Before we move any further, a couple of things I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to subscribe. I'm going to ask you to like, and I'm going to ask you to share. We all know what algorithms do and how important it is to have likes and shares and subscriptions so that this information, this conversation about power and education gets to as many people as possible. So let's go ahead and dive in to what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about you're doing too much. What if all of your doing is really not doing what you think and what you plan? I want to talk today about four leaks, four power leaks that leaders don't discuss. So, and we're going to also lean into how this really tracks into the messy middle. I call it the messy middle, right? That place where a lot of people don't really want to talk about. They don't want to talk about middle school. I'm not in Virginia right now. I'm out of my state for the moment, working with a school district in Massachusetts. And I was talking to a principal, and she said they had a district training coming up. But a lot of times when they have district trainings coming up, they have to get subs to cover their educators. And one of her challenges was it was very difficult for her to get middle school substitutes because people don't want to substitute in middle school. So that is something that we're going to really talk a little bit about how we can really not overdo our work. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, people ask me this all the time. Why do you talk about power in education? What is power and why do you keep talking about it in education? Well, I want to share this quote. You've probably seen this quote if you've been watching the show. This quote is meaningful, right? Education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power. The control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. That quote is the cornerstone of why we have to talk about power in education in real and tangible ways. When you have the opportunity or the large responsibility of shaping what a child learns, that is indeed power. And that's really important to consider. The next thing people always ask me is, well, all right, Dr. Marshall, you've talked about power in education. Well, what is this thing that you call instructional power? Well, here it is. Instructional power can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, and building ascribed job related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. Critical. Again, and for me, and again, if you've been watching the show, tuning in, you know that when I say educator, I mean an educator at every level, at the state level, the district level, and the building level, and the classroom level. If you lead any of those spaces, you absolutely use your instructional power in one of two ways. You're either affording access to opportunity in education and learning, or you are constraining it. And you may be doing that actively, or you may be doing that inadvertently. Either way, you're doing that. So that's what we do. And I talk very, very specifically about how to really dig into your own use and understanding of power in my book, Understanding Your Instructional Power, which is the cornerstone and the backbone of where this comes from. So, in case you missed it, October was a fantastic month. We leaned into the shifts. October is a tricky month. It can break a lot of cultures. And we talked about it doesn't have to, right? We leaned into leadership power moves that allow you to name your environment, to help you really pause, to help you think critically about what's happening, to really do some power moves to ensure that October is not going to break your culture. So that's what we talked about in October. And we ended the month with Dr. Alicia Blackwood from Longwood University in Virginia, sharing with us about the Ubuntu pedagogy. Because of you, I am, right? We are. And we really broke down the framework for how to understand the Ubuntu pedagogy and make it part of your learning and part of your teaching. So if you weren't here last week, please go ahead, check out that episode and share it with someone else. And be sure you get Dr. Blackwood's book. So where are we headed this month? This month, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Our November focus is where power leaks and how to regain it, how arts, identity, and belonging redefine leadership, creative practices that renew influence, and how to move from reaction to reflection. That is where we're headed this month. And we're going to have an exciting guest next week. And I'm going to tell you who she's going to be at the end of our show. So stick around. All right, let's start off and dig into these power leaks. I'm going to share 4 power leaks for our discussion today so that we really are thinking critically about what's happening in November. So right now, we're going to do the number 1 leak, the fixer's leak, when helping becomes hindering. Leak number 2, the control leak, the illusion of perfection. The clarity leak, tasks over purpose, and then the energy leak, thinking about unprotected empathy. This is just like October. November is also a tricky month. You probably have about 15 actual days of classroom building in the building. We have the Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving holiday coming up. There, some schools were out for Election Day. There is Veterans Day coming. And then you're going to have your usual district-wide professional learning days. All of that is happening, which makes the time between October, really, if we think back to last month, October and December, very quick, very intense. And as a leader in a building, so now I'm talking about leaders in buildings. As a leader in a building, if you don't have a hold on the temperature of your building, this 3-month timetable can really be negatively impactful on students and staff. So let's go ahead and dig into each one of these individually. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about the our fixers leak, right? When helping becomes hindering. Leaders who overfunction I was a person who overfunctioned. I know that a lot of us out here who overfunction. You actually reduce your team's problem solving capacity by 30%. That's a study that came out of the Harvard Business Review. They found that when leaders are overfunctioning, they're doing too much. Their actual productivity of their team begins to diminish because they are removing the ability of their team to participate. They are also creating learned helplessness. All of those factors are really important for leaders if you are over functioning. Next, over helping, and this is again, so my first comment here, leaders who over function, that works in education and it works in the business realm. Any place where you're leading, you are over functioning, you are reducing capacity. At the school level, over helping lowers teachers' self efficacy. They do feel helped, but they don't feel empowered. And empowerment, agency development is critical in ensuring that this time of year, you as the leader in the building, do not overwork yourself by doing tasks that others can do. So when leaders fix everything, they unintentionally weaken the people they're trying to strengthen. Consider that. You might think you're doing a good thing, but in the end, what you're doing is you are diminishing the capacity of those you are determined to develop. I'll say it again. You're diminishing the capacity of those you are determined to develop. And if you're a leader in a building, how many classes can you teach at any one time? How many discipline opportunities can you manage at any one time? How many phone calls? How many lunchroom incidences? If you're the leader and you are really trying to lead effectively, if you're doing too much, you're going in the opposite direction. So that is when helping becomes a hindrance. Let's talk about the next one. Our next one is about the illusion of perfection, the control leak, this illusion of perfection, right? High trust organizations see 76% higher engagement and 50% lower turnover. That's a Gallup poll study from 2023. Imagine that. When you are building trust, that is, you are trusting your educators to do their job as an educator or any other extracurricular jobs, any leadership development jobs, capacity building functions that you are beginning to turn over to your educators. When you do that and you're building trust through transparency, when you are communicating effectively and concisely, right? And you're doing all of this in a way that brings more voices to your table, you are increasing the trust value and you're increasing the engagement by 76%, and you're lowering turnover, cutting it in half basically. And we know that there is a shortage of available educators around the country, but imagine being the one who is increasing the engagement and lowering the turnover. And then next, over control destroys innovation. Autonomy drives retention and morale. That was from a RAND study in 2021. If you are over controlling, you're micromanaging, you are destroying innovation, but you're also eroding trust. Because if you got to micromanage a person, that means you don't trust them to do the job that you are asking them to do. So the illusion of control protects performance today, right? In the moment, but erodes capacity tomorrow. One of the critical dimensions I talk about in my book is power protection. If you are a leader and you are micromanaging your staff, going to ask you to think critically about how you understand power and how you understand your authority. Because if you're doing that, you are protecting your position, you're protecting ownership line items, you're protecting the workflow, you are eroding the environment, and you're ruining relationships. So if you are micromanaging, just remember that illusion of control is going to get you something today. It's going to get you compliance. But later down the road, it's going to erode capacity development among your staff. So let's also talk about the next one, the clarity leak. This is all about your communication. Misalignment and unclear communication are top predictors of team dysfunction. If you are saying one thing out loud, maybe you have a hidden curriculum in your head, that's going to cause confusion. Maybe you're not checking for the understanding of your words to make sure all parties are on the same page regarding what you are expecting and what might be a non-negotiable or what might be a suggestion. Had a conversation today about expectations and non-negotiables. And it's really important that you are very clear about what a non-negotiable is or is not. Clear purpose can raise achievement by 20 percentile points from the Wallace Foundation. And they do a lot, their work focuses a lot on principles and buildings. Clarity isn't control, it's coherence. You want to build coherence. I want you to think for a moment the idea of telephone, right? People use that idea a lot, but it is germane. If we are not communicating clearly in a coherent manner, everybody is going to then have space for interpretation. And in that interpretation, you leave a vacuum and you create, I will say, inequitable environments where people are off doing things very differently than what you may want. So clarity is key. It is essential that as a leader, you are clear in your communication. One of the things I say when I am either presenting something or working with people, I'll say, or if I'm leading a learning session, I'll say, that was clear inside my head. Was it clear coming out of my mouth? You want to make sure that what is inside your head is clear, but you want to make even more certain that it is clear coming out of your mouth. So let's go to the last one. The last one here, and I'm going to stick here for a little bit. This is the energy leak. 54% of leaders report frequent job stress. That came out of a RAND study in 2023. In that same study, they found about 70% of educators also feel job-related stress. Unprotected empathy reduces creative output by 25%. That was a McKinsey study in 2023. The bottom line here is this: you can't empower others from an empty battery. We have heard it, we know it to be true, but here's the thing about being in an education space: it is highly dynamic. I'll say it again. Education spaces are highly dynamic, and that dynamism sometimes requires a lot of energy release. And equally, you may not get the restoration. But here is the wire you must walk, the fine line you have to lead through, that balance of pouring out and getting back in. You have to determine when you're reaching your own saturation point. If you don't know your own saturation point, you are prone to overproduce. You are prone to give too much. So I want you to be thinking critically through, what does it mean when you are really giving too much of yourself and you are about to drain your battery? Because if you are draining your battery, you're going to react when you should be reflecting. You're going to cause stress when you might need to streamline. You might be piling on when you might need to pause. So be critically aware of when you are reaching fatigue. And how does it show up? It shows up sometimes when we are short tempered and don't really know why. It shows up when we are sleeping too much. We might be overeating. We might not be exercising enough. We might be expecting others to read our minds because we just can't get the ideas out. Want us to be very mindful of this battery and in recharging our batteries. And that's our fourth one. So I want to give you, every week we give power moves, right? So I want to give you some power moves to consider. The power move of the week: pause to reclaim your power. So pause before you act. So your next move is intentional, not impulsive. Pause before you fix something. So you build capacity, not dependency. Pause before you respond. So your words reflect clarity, not reaction. And then pause before you decide. So your choices align with purpose and not pressure. That is the power move for this week. I want you to think clearly about pausing. We tend to think pause means that we just don't know what we're doing. We need to take a breath, right? Your brain needs to take a breath. So this week, today's Thursday, as you go into next week, and some of you might have a day off next week, it's Veterans Day. So next Tuesday, you might be off. That's going to be a body pause and a brain pause. But as you think about your coming week, go ahead and practice one of these power moves. Decide, are you going to pause before you act? Will you pause before you fix? Will you pause before you respond? Or will you pause before you decide? I know for me, I'm going to pause before I respond. And I think our leaders out there, let's try and pause before we fix. Let's lean into building capacity. So pause before you fix. All right, that's what we did. So we had a lot of conversation this week. We recapped where we were in October, and we leaned into four really important leadership leaks, right? Some power leaks that leaders don't talk about. We don't discuss our leaky buckets, and we have them. So, what are your four leaky buckets? Are you in the fixing? Are you over fixing? Are you having a clarity leak? What leak are you having that you might need to shore up? And which of these power moves might you need to consider? All right, so got to have that gem for the journey. We are leaning in again. We've been leaning in to our data to action tool. I'm leaning into it because this is a tool that's going to help you do one of those power moves. It's going to help you really gather some data and think critically about where your environment is and what are some action steps to move forward. This is not about a retreat. It is about a reset. And you're going to need this reset because December is going to be here before you know it. So go ahead and get a jump start on that. And in that, when you get to a point where you need some extra support, feel free to reach out and let us know how we can support you by implementing what you decide in your data to action reflection tool. All right, I told you that we're going to have a special guest. I am beyond thrilled to have joining me next week Ashley Cuthbertson, author of Music as a Vehicle. She leans into culturally responsive music and arts education, the entire arts education. You're going to want to make sure you tune in next week because she's going to be dropping gems about how to really revitalize your arts education. And in the meantime, please be sure you grab a copy of Ashley's book, Music as a Vehicle. Check out her website, ashleycuthbertson.com, and be sure you are prepared to join us next week as we dig into a really lively discussion about the power of arts and creativity and identity as we keep moving through the month of November. All right, I'm going to ask you again, do you have your copy of Understanding Your Instructional Power? I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger. There is the link that you can get it. Please go ahead, take a picture, tag us, let us know that you have a copy of the book. And if over in the last 26 minutes you haven't taken the time to like, subscribe, and share, now is as good a time as any. Please go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and share this with a colleague and let them know that we are sharing the resources they need to ensure that they don't have a leaky bucket on those items that people don't talk about. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining another session of Let's Talk Power Live. We will see you next week.